The first direct documentary references to the presence of Jews in the city of Barcelona date from the 9th century, but their presence probably goes back to the early centuries of the Christian era, when Judaism reached the western shores of the Mediterranean with the migrations and expansion of Eastern religions and found followers among the ruling class of the Roman colonies. Jews normally lived grouped together. In Barcelona, they settled in the western quarter of the late Roman city. They built a synagogue in the centre of this area, and to bury their dead, they bought land on a nearby hill, which is why the hill is still known today by the name Montjuic, or Jews' Hill. Before the end of the 11th century, the streets of the district where the Jews lived had become an exclusive enclosed area. The decision to close off the streets seems to have coincided with the division of the city into parishes with defined boundaries. The urban district they occupied was given the name Cai Juic, or Jewish Quarter. Cai is a Catalan word indicating a narrow passage enclosed between two banks or walls. It also means an alley. This exclusive compound for the Jews existed for 4 centuries, precisely until 1391. To the east, the Cai extended beyond what is now Carrer de Sant Honorat, with houses on either side. To the north, it included today's Carrer de Sant Sever, with 2 or 3 short blind alleys. To the west, it was bounded by the old Roman wall, and to the south, its bounds were marked by the new castle, no longer standing, and by the Carrer del Cai, which was then called Carrer dels Torners. This street was actually outside the compound and was shared by Jews and Christians. The Jewish district communicated with the rest of the city via 2 gateways opening onto the present-day Carrer del Cai. The first was at the beginning of the street, now called Carrer de Sant Honorat, leading to the old Plaça de Sant Jaume. The second stood where Carrer de Sant Domènec begins. Beside this gate was the butcher's shop, frequented by both Jews and Christians. In the 13th century, Jewish immigration from Occitania, southern France, increased considerably. There was not enough space in the Jewish quarter to house all the new arrivals, and in 1257, King James I authorised Jewish settlement on land outside the old town wall, near the new castle. This area was named the Lesser Cai, to distinguish it from the original quarter, which then became known as the Greater Cai. Despite the increase in Jewish inhabitants of Barcelona, they seem never to have numbered more than 10% of the city's population. The community of Jews in Barcelona, like all stable communities, had buildings for religious services and social purposes. It had schools, a hospital, and ritual baths, as well as synagogues. Towards the end of the 14th century, there were 5 synagogues in the Greater Cai and 1 in the Lesser Cai. Barcelona's Jewish quarter came to a tragic end. In early August 1391, the Cai buildings were set on fire, sacked and destroyed. The rabble confronted the Jews with the dilemma of baptism or death. About 300 men and women chose to die as martyrs, while the majority agreed to be taken to churches to be baptized. Those who were baptized legally ceased to be Jews. In their own interests, King John I and Martin the Humane tried to rebuild a community of Jews, albeit very small, in the Catalan capital, reserving the Lesser Cai for them. However, the municipal authorities opposed the move, and finally in 1423 obtained from King Alfonso the Magnanimous the definitive privilege that the city could never again house a community of Jews, and that Jews could not be resident there for more than a fortnight. The Jews of medieval Barcelona distinguished themselves for their international connections. From the 12th century onwards, chosen members of the richest Jewish families entered the service of the monarchy as financiers and administrative advisors. Some were also ambassadors at Muslim courts. Some members of the community, who were also rich, acted alongside municipal governors, played an active part in Mediterranean trade, and invested in income funds. Both groups contributed to making Barcelona an important economic centre. Credit was fundamental to commerce and urban activities, and the Jews played a very important role in it. Members of the upper classes and artisans alike engaged in it. In the cultural sphere, the Jews of Barcelona began to stand out at the end of the 11th century. The Barcelona Jewish quarter, well connected with the most innovative centres of Al-Andalus, the Mediterranean and Western Europe, created a cultural legacy of universal value. The first great figure was Abraham Bar Chiyah, an innovator in the field of science and philosophy. Later, the city's Talmudic schools became centres of attraction and influence throughout the European West. In rabbinical jurisprudence, an outstanding figure was Solomon ben Adret, who died in 1310, and later Rabbi Isaac Perfet. Hasdai Cresques, the last great Barcelona Jewish thinker, is also worthy of mention. Today, the streets of the Jewish quarter continue to evoke the history and cultural legacy of this important Mediterranean Jewish community, which is part of the medieval history of Barcelona, the capital of Catalonia.